Captain's Log, Stardate 20 or whatever. These are the continued voyages of Ensigns Mark and Eddie as I trek our way through all of Star Trek, coming to you live from 10 forward. I'm Eddie Edwards. I'm joined as always by Mark O'Neill. Mark, how you been? How you doing?
Yeah. Don't really have much to add. I actually haven't really been up to much. It's been a few weeks since we've been hanging out in 10 forward, and I haven't really done anything, nor has anything really occurred. We kind of just spent a couple of adventures going to planets without any aliens on them. Just going, those plants are nice, isn't it? Yeah, look at that. Isn't it fun that looks... See, it was quite good because it's like when we went to a planet where it was exactly like Earth, except the proportions of palm trees and cactuses were reversed. So palm trees were sort of about 5 feet tall for the most part. Cactuses were giant. And we were there for a month. And that's the kind of important hard-hitting science that the Starfleet flagship apparently should be doing.
Well, I mean, people forget that, the average year of Starfleet operations on board any of the ships in the fleet only actually produces 22 45-minute bits of footage that are entertaining. The rest of the year is just usually mindless busy work.
It's a bit like but then I also get why, I get why the exciting stuff only happens every now and again. It's a bit like on the X-Files, when one of the criticisms of the X-Files is that we get Scully, you've done 9 seasons of this and you still don't believe that Mulder is correct. It's like, yeah, but I look at it from the other way. If we were we don't get to see the cases where it doesn't turn out to be paranormal, which as far as we're aware is 90% of the time. So yeah. Mulder is actually wrong far more than he is correct. And Scully, being a good, solid FBI agent, understands that and maintains that consistency.
One of my favourite episodes of the X-Files is there's an episode where they are talking about it's a town full of vampires, but the episode is told from both Mulder and Scully's perspective. And Mulder, it starts with them being it starts with Mulder explaining things, and he's talking about how he was hunting someone through the woods, and he shoved the stake through the vampire's heart. And then Scully's version of it is she's just in the woods, and then she comes across Mulder murdering a man with a wooden stick. And she phrases it I wandered into the clearing and I came into the clearing and I found Agent Mulder overreacting.
But yeah, I haven't done it. It was Mother's Day yesterday. So how have you been?
I've had the most Star Trek thing that's ever going to happen to me happen with the brain tumour treatment, because that was sci-fi as fuck. I tell you what, you go into the room and there's this robot arm that moves around you and points the radiation at you, and that's mostly fine right up until the point it's directly. So because my tumour's in the inner ear, there was a point where it's directly above me, pointing at my eye.
Right
now, I don't know if the human eye is more susceptible to radiation than any other part of the body, but my brain categorizes my eye as fragile and needing of protection. So I was immediately oh no. But then also the other thing that freaked me out about it is that as the arm's moving around, there's no safety there's no safety railing that keeps the arm away. So I'm where's the arm?
It's like the warp drive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the warp drive on everything in Star Wars. No fucking railings. So there's this arm flailing around, and all I could think was, if that arm just comes down and crushes me, I'm locked in and I can't move. So there's nothing I can do. There's no one in the room because it's the beam's harmless anyway. We're gonna go activate it from 3 rooms away behind a lead shield.
My favourite thing at the dentist, and it's a long list, is when they do an X-ray and they put that horrible thing in your mouth that holds the X-ray paper, and then they really like sheepishly scuttle away behind another door to press the button, and every single dentist does it in exactly the same way. They're like, sorry, and then they kind of, it's like, you know, that like that dad run where you're running but you're not going any faster. They sort of do that out the door. And I guess it's so that you can think, my God, can you please go a little bit faster so that I can have one less second with this apparatus inside of my mouth. But then they're like, well, I don't want to go any faster because I get paid the same for this anyway. I don't really care. Like, if this guy had taken better care of his teeth, then he fucking wouldn't be here, would he? It's every time I go to the dentist, it really is like a catch-22 sort of like match of wills, from the dentist being objectively correct about the way that I treat my teeth, and me just being stubborn and not wanting to change the way that I live my life, and something's got to give, and it's usually me, and by give I mean £80 for a checkup.
Every conversation I've had with a dentist at some point includes this: do you floss? No. I mean, you should do. I'm not going to. It's like, well, you should do. It's like, well, you can say that, but unless you're going to be in my bathroom every night, you're not going to be able to make me. So let's just accept that I'm not going to do the thing that makes my gums bleed. Well, your gums shouldn't be bleeding. Well, that's another issue that you need to fix.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Because it's as if I have less respect for dentists, and I think that I do, because, well, they are technically real doctors. That's fine, right? But dentists, there isn't a single dentist in the world that gets into it for the love of dentistry. No, they get into it because it's a fucking easy job. It's 9 to 5. They literally have a guaranteed post, and it's decent money. And if they slum it out in the NHS for a couple of years, they can go off to Abu Dhabi and make way more cash, right? So there isn't a single dentist that becomes a dentist to help people. What was my point? It was about how I don't have any respect for dentists.
My thing with dentists is they are technically doctors, but if you are a medical doctor, right, you have to be able to answer that question honestly if you're on a plane and somebody asks is there a doctor on board. No one is going to be happy with you if you go, oh, I'm a doctor, and they go, oh, brilliant, this guy's having a heart attack, and you go, well, I'm a dentist. No one's going to be like, oh, thank God, can you do an emergency root canal?
Yes, people would be like, oh my God, we'd literally be better with a fucking psychiatrist. I just remember my point about dentist. Oh yeah, so that's it. So yeah, there's that thing. You should floss, right? Everyone should be flossing every day. Every now and again, a study will come out that says that flossing isn't as important as you think it is, and then 2 weeks later, that will have been proven wrong, right? Flossing is literally, in fact, from what I understand, it's actually more important to floss than it is to brush your teeth. And yet, I still don't do it. And I think a lot of that comes down to dentist attitudes. If I went to a real doctor, a proper doctor, and they said, listen, there's a thing that you need to do every day that's uncomfortable. Right, you need to stick a finger up your bum. And I'm like, ooh. And they're like, yeah, but not in a fun way. I'm like, oh, okay. You need to grow your fingernail out really, really long first, right? That's the secret to this medicine. And I'd be like, oh, that sounds awful. And you mean I really have to do that every morning when I wake up and before I go to bed? I mean, I guess so. And then sometimes, if I do forget to do it, I could do it after dinner just while I'm sitting in the living room. Like, it actually doesn't take any more time. I can do it while I'm doing other things. It's just that I have to do it, and then it makes my fingers hurt, and then my fingers always smell afterwards. See, that's the equivalent of flossing, is putting a finger up your bum, right? And I'd be willing to do that far more than I'd be willing to floss, because frankly, dentists can fuck himself. Like, my teeth obviously are very important to me, and I need them, and I would be lost without them. How and ever, they are the body part I am most willing to sacrifice for my own comfort and laziness.
There's two things. One, my teeth are the only body part that I can buy more of. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. if my heart goes, I can't. Unless I go to some very fucking seedy places, I can't do anything about that.
Yeah,
that's fine. But the other thing is, like you say, my teeth are important, but dentists want you to care about teeth as much as they care about teeth, and I'm not going to, because I'm not a dentist. I haven't devoted my life to teeth, because no one should. And if you do that, I was going to say, if you do that, you're a boring bastard. But I will make the caveat: there is one dentist who I respect, and that is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, who is a real life dentist with an actual practice, and the former AEW Women's Champion. So yeah, I'll give you that. That's it. But I respect her more for the wrestling than the dentistry. So if you want me to take you seriously as a dentist, I need to see you do a top rope Hurricane Rana.
Yeah. Yeah, and also dentists, I don't think, care that much about teeth. They care about the latest conservatory, and they have to, I believe, keep up a standard of dentistry in order to maintain the job. Because what do you think a dentist mystery shopper is like? Do you think it's someone that comes in and they've just got strips of duct tape over their teeth to make sure that the dentist will actually even look at them?
I've got I've got private dental insurance because Emma gets it through work, and she put me down as the second person, and so me needing to get a filling turned into me needing to get two fillings, which then turned into me having a dressing put in and now an extra appointment because the level of Bupa cover I'm on just basically made the dentist go, top. I'm certain I saw the middle of his eyes turn into pound signs.
Yeah.
And then realising the state of the pound, the euro.
Quite a common thing for Brits to do, I hear, is to go for like 2 weeks in Bulgaria and get all their teeth done because dental work is so much cheaper there. And Laura and I planned to do that when we had a little bit of cash, but now the war in Ukraine is really, really, really putting a damper on that. And if anyone can get a hold of Putin, if you can tell him how inconvenient this bloodshed is for my fiance and I.
The real victim.
The real victims, exactly.
Should we talk about this episode of Star Trek?
Should we talk about this week's happenings on the Enterprise?
Yeah. Speaking of dodgy medical practitioners, I like this episode. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
If not for the fact that it was entirely built again on a complete misunderstanding of what the Prime Directive is. It's not just a rule mark, it's a philosophy that Picard 100% agrees with, despite the fact that he clearly doesn't understand what it is.
Right. So, don't want to go. I feel like we have been a bit wrong about the Prime Directive.
Have we? I thought it was just you don't interfere if they haven't got warp drive.
No. If they have, right, so I had to, because apparently the Prime Directive of the Space Navy is a little bit more complicated than we might have suspected.
Right, okay.
Who would have thunk? So, basically, it's blanket non-interference for anyone who isn't in the Federation.
Right,
if they have warp drive, if they have warp capability, you can offer them to come into the Federation, but you can't actually really interfere with them on any level if they're not. Okay. Obviously, it all comes down to what does the writer have to say about it. But
right, okay.
Yeah, so if they are spacefaring, also they can ask for help, but you're not really allowed to give them help without them asking for it.
Okay.
Which is kind of it's basically like American foreign policy.
Right.
It's the best way to think of it is that. So apparently Picard is correctly using the Prime Directive here. The main part of it is non-interference with non-warp drive, non-warp societies. But with warp societies, there are parts of it that. So he was right. This was a real Kobayashi Maru situation for him.
Mark, sorry, I don't know what you mean by that. Would you like to explain it further?
Get me a bottle of vodka. Sit down. So I did like this episode as well, but I feel like it was interesting because it was an episode sponsored by Dare from the 90s, the Just Say No drugs campaign.
It's also an episode that was written by somebody who's like, Mark, what's your favourite bit of Starfleet technology? Like from Star Trek? Is it the warp core, the transporter, the replicator? What's your favourite?
Oh man, I do like the relaxation light.
The relaxation light.
But the relaxation light, and then followed 20 minutes later by copious amounts of replicator use to make chips and dip.
I agree with you there. I like the holodeck myself, but whoever is responsible for this episode's favourite bit of Star Trek technology is apparently the fucking view screen, which took a starring role in this episode.
Do you know what I really liked? Before you get into that, I really, really, really liked the opening of this. Where it almost opened like a movie. It was just the Picard doing the like all points bulletin, or the all call out to the entire crew, and then just shots of people just at work.
Yeah, and it was the proper procedural stuff of like, there's a star. It's got an overly active magnetosphere.
Yeah,
they want to go check it out, so they turn up, and it's like all the procedures of how does Starfleet go and monitor a star. And one of the things they do is put a black spot on the screen and then move it across so it covers the middle of the star, so they can look at it rather than putting a shade over the screen, which again isn't a screen because it can't possibly be a screen. It's not a window. There's a camera. Like they could. Unless that screen has been deliberately built to have the intensity of a star for no reason other than to blind everybody on the bridge.
I mean, I do kind of get it, because I just bought a 4K monitor to go along with my 1K, like 2K monitor, and it's I think Laura has noticed me, because occasionally she'll walk by the office door and she'll see me literally 6 inches away from my screen, sort of looking at it like up and down and really inspecting it, and then yesterday I went, wow, you really can't see the individual pixels. Just to myself. and I'm looking at the Google Chrome icon, and I'm like, wow, it's like really round. Oh, speaking of fucking stoners. So, we come across a ship, a freighter.
Yep. Yeah, I'm giving this ship design a 6 out of 10. I've decided. Very Aliens.
Oh yeah, right. So we'll have a list. We're going to start having a list of ship designs. Yep, this is near the bottom.
Yeah, it's got that Aliens look where it looks like it's cobbled together from an Airfix kit.
Yeah.
I like that, but it's got no place in Star Trek.
No. I like that they called in, and the captain was Matthew McConaughey's character from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, but played by the actor. We've got to mention it. It's played by the actor who played Kirk's son in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. Now, do you know why?
Is he a friend of Roddenberry's?
No. So basically, he was dying of AIDS, and he I don't know why I said that in such a comedy way. Obviously, AIDS is a tragedy. I don't feel
it's
like
the funniest disease.
I don't feel like we need to. Don't feel like we need to underline that. Obviously, AIDS is bad, right? If this podcast has a stance on AIDS,
we're against it.
It's against, right?
We are against
but
AIDS.
yeah, no, he was
wouldn't have it
pretty seriously
if I could avoid it.
Dying of AIDS, and he had medical bills, and
right.
He knew some people in the Star Trek crew, and they said, "We'll write you this part if you wanna come and do it."
It's like, and fortunately, there's a lot of crossover in the Venn diagram of junkie and AIDS patient, so it works quite well.
Wow. Yeah. So they call him up, and he's obviously, he sounds like a big stoner.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed, and Picard is not there for it. Like, Picard is asking, he says, first of all, he says, my ship is broken. we don't know what it is. Data, this is a great Data episode. Data scans it, figures out that the problem is with one of the coils. Picard tells him this. The other guy says, "Oh, okay, well, it's I don't really know what to do. I don't really know the components of this ship." To which Picard is obviously standing there going, "How can a captain not know the components of his ship? Did this guy not read Sun Tzu?"
I wouldn't. I'm going to throw this out there. Like, if I at any point end up with a starship, Mark, it's going to be stolen. And I'm not going to have spent the prerequisite time. There'll be someone on board who knows how it works. But, like, Mal Reynolds from Firefly didn't have a fucking clue how that ship stayed in the air. He just knew that he had to keep Kaylee alive and to give her the occasional cheeseburger. And then things would work.
I quite often work with like editing programs and video editing programs and sound editing programs and image editing and 3D rendering programs and stuff like that. And basically, I have fucked around with them long enough to figure out how to do exactly what I want to do and no more. I have no idea how they work. I have no idea what most of the buttons do. I don't know what subsurface scattering is, DAS 3D. I don't know why you continually ask me about it. I'm sure that it makes a difference, and one day, if it ever becomes important, I will learn that, but I have no idea how that stuff works. And that, again, is how I pay my rent.
Yeah, and that's... So, yeah, I was like... I've got no idea. And also, I'd like to point out that when he asks about it, they realise they need a coil. They don't be like, oh, we can knock a coil out on the replicators. They're like, oh, no, we have one in stores.
Yeah.
So
Jensen's been busy.
Jensen gets... Yeah. Right. Okay. I have an important question about this, Mark, because this is... Right, so this isn't a warp-capable ship that they've got. It's like, it's only doing a little run between two planets that are relatively close. It's a planet and its moon. I think they're relatively close to each other. So they don't have a warp core, but they do have a transporter.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to put forward the argument that the transporter is significantly more difficult to make than a warp core. Because, like, as a society, like, the current state of human scientific understanding is we understand the scientific process that would be required to make a warp core. It's basically you need to fuck with the Higgs boson, you can screw with the mass of something, that warps space-time, and then you can like ride the wave. We have no fucking clue how to make a transporter.
No.
It's just not possible. Like, that's way harder to do.
We don't even, like, because the thing about it, a warp drive is a theoretically possible piece of science. Like, it's a thing that we can do. The problem with the transporter is that there would also be a philosophical debate about whether the one who left is that the same person who arrived at the other end. And that's
philosophical debate that Star Trek will later answer. No, it's not. Every time you step into a transporter, you die. The new person gets to carry on.
And the weird thing is, it's interesting that a planet full of stoners would have invented transport technology and not work, because surely every single time that they're about to transport, they're like, am I the same guy? Look, has anyone here seen The Prestige? I did like as well when Picard first hails them and he can't understand them because they're all talking at once. And I'm like, I think that's because they don't think they're talking to another ship. They think they're at the drive-thru and they're all just trying to order what they want.
Yeah. They're not even a particularly good representation of stoners or whatever they're supposed to be. I thought we haven't addressed the actual plot of this episode.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
So we need to address this. The plot of this episode is there's two planets. One planet's only industry is making the cure for the disease that is ravishing the other planet, and it's basically you have to take this dose every day. Basically, you have to take a thing for it's every 72 hours, otherwise the plague will kill you. Except those people on the other planet haven't got the plague, and it's just and they don't know that. Like, they don't know that they haven't got a plague. They think they have, and they're having drugs pushed on them by in my current state, I can't really keep up with names. I've just written down this shiny sleeved cunt.
The crack dealer, the rich crack dealer.
Yeah, the rich crack dealer, fucking space Tory.
Yeah, exactly.
And they beam him off the ship, and they try to beam six. They try to beam off the ship, and they beam over the drugs first rather than the people. And then there's like 6 people on the ship, and Tasha can only beam off 4 of them, which I've written down is 66.6%, which under the American grading system is a D.
And under American foreign policy is an acceptable amount of collateral damage.
The Americans in this episode, if you're wondering, are the people selling the drugs.
Correct. The people selling the drugs are Will Smith.
Yeah. The people selling the drugs are Space Martin Shkreli.
Yes.
They are. Yeah, that's the best way to sum this up.
Exactly. Tasha says I can only there's 6 of them. Yeah. I can only transport 4, but they try and transport them over. This is the first instance of 2 transporters being connected, which I believe makes it easier to transport. And
that's how we know they've got a transporter.
Yeah. The first thing that arrives is a crate of cargo. And rather than the people, which is not what the Enterprise asked for. And Riker says, what could possibly be so important about this cargo? And the thing is, it's just a giant Taco Bell order. But the thing is, they were so stoned. But this is quite genius. They thought, we'll send that first. Because if we go over first and then ask to be sent back for the Taco Bell order, they won't let us do it. It's better, as is the motto of Starfleet, Eddie, it is better to apologise than ask for permission. That's the prime directive. That's what the prime directive should be.
It's well, there's one thing I do want to bring up. So they when they're chatting about this, right? Okay, there is a point where Picard asks, like, when he's told it, at the opening bits of this episode, where Picard thinks that it's a genuine plague. He asks the guys from the plague planet how many more people are suffering, and they say that everyone on their planet's got it. Yeah. It's thousands more, and all I've got written down is that is a roomy fucking planet.
Yeah.
I would have thought that you need a population of somewhere in the billions to get space travel, because we have one, and that's where we're at.
One thing I really didn't enjoy about this episode is that the planets. I think the idea is it's 2 planets, or like as you say, a planet and its moon, and it's 1 people who have sort of almost diverged. Evolutionarily, but not that much. They're obviously still the same species. The issue is that the names of the planets weren't distinct enough for me to ever figure out who the fuck they were talking about. I think the bad
guys might have been called the Brachians, because I've got written down in my notes here, fuck the Brachians, and it seems like that's something I would have aimed at the Tories.
The shiny cunts. But it was just I can see it in my notes. I can see when the penny dropped, and it's when I wrote, "Oh fuck, is this an episode about the crack epidemic?"
In which Tasha has to explain to Wesley why people would do drugs, and at no point does she use the phrase "fun."
See, I originally when she started doing it, and even to an extent afterwards, I was like, yeah, for 1987-88 telly, that's a pretty almost somewhat balanced view of drugs, because that's my issue with drug education, especially the way that I got it in the 90s in primary school and in high school, is that no one ever told me
the truth.
Why would anyone do drugs? Like, or if anyone ever asks why do people do drugs, it's always, some people are sad and depressed and homeless, and maybe it's just the only thing that they can do, or maybe they get addicted. Why the fuck didn't they just have like a 23-year-old come in, gunning off his tits, and go around hugging every 14-year-old, being like, drugs are amazing. Like, but here's how you go, and he walks around going, drugs are amazing. Have you heard the new Westlife song? Like, and really isn't Pokemon, doesn't it just say a lot about all of us? And everybody's having a fucking banging time, and the teacher's like, all right, everybody, we're going out for playtime. Get the tunes on. Right, and then everyone goes out, and then they all go home and they say to their mum and dad, Mum, Dad, we had drugs education today, and we learned that drugs are excellent. And then the mum and dad are sitting there, and they're at the kitchen table, and they're drafting up their complaint letter. They go in the next day to see Mrs. Robinson, and they go to put the letter into her hand to say how disgusted they are that this is how their children have been taught about drugs. And then Mrs. Robinson, with a sly little smile on her face, a little glint, says, well, we actually have another guest today. And you know what? It's the same guy. It's the 23-year-old, and he's on the biggest come down of his entire fucking life, and he's just in the corner, and he's just rocking back and forth, and so the teacher, Mrs. Robinson, turns round to these, I don't know, what are they, 7-year-olds, and she's like, so as you can see, kids, drugs are great, but on balance, every now and again, like, don't, once you hit your 30s, aim for 3 times a year.
I clearly have a clear memory of being in I was in 6th form, so this is about 2001, and we were having it's like, are you in 6th form now? We can have the grown-up proper conversation about drugs. And this teacher was like, well, why do you think people do drugs? And I was like, well, like, you lived through the 70s.
Yeah.
So
before she asked that, did she turn her chair the other way around?
Yeah. And it's like, I was like, you guys lived through the 70s, so we know that you did them. So, and also, like, it's like, and that's at the point that I'm like 16. It's like, everybody in this room's had a joint, and you told us that would kill us, and now all we know is that you lied to us about that. So we can only assume you lied about everything. What you should have done is sat us down and gone like, look, weed, it's probably okay for you. Don't do smack.
Yeah, that should have been, rather than don't just say no, it should have been just do weed. Stick with weed. That's what it should have been. That should be the fucking slogan that we give to high school kids.
Stick with weed. Do it Glastonbury.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you can find one of those tester people, tell people to get into the habit of that. Oh no, we can't, because the Tories have banned them.
Speaking of like the wrong person to talk to about drugs, Wesley, when he's like realizes they explain that the drugs thing is going on to Wesley decides to ask Data, the one non-biological entity who has no idea what any of this shit means, right? And then fortunately Tasha Yar's nearby, she's going, actually, my childhood was shit. Drugs were great.
Yeah.
Why? Because they made it seem slightly better.
I have done so much ecstasy. Why do you think I'm here? We don't even have a Starfleet Academy sign up on our planet. I have no idea how I got here. Our planet,
I was found in orbit.
My planet is pre-warp. No one knows that I'm gone. Have you ever been on a trip so good that you woke up in a sci-fi adventure?
Yeah, do it right now.
Yeah. That's what it was like. So yeah, that kind of speech, I at face value, I was like, well, I guess it is good that they are approaching these things, but it's the same problem I have with every special episode about drugs, as you've said. No one points out, if we were to stop lying to children and point out the positives of actual drugs, I think drug education, we need to start giving children more credit. Like, we started making kids movies better, so why can't we start putting kids on drugs? That's all I'm saying.
I've just looked at my notes and I've got one line written down here that just says, Wesley doesn't understand drugs. Fucking square.
And do the replicators make drugs?
A better question is, surely they've got access to the fucking full archive of all human fucking media ever made, unless that gets wiped out in the post-atomic horror. Like, watch Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah. and also, you can experiment however you want, because remember that planet that we went to where the palm trees and the cactuses were reversed? Well, marijuana was replaced with daffodils. Everywhere, mate. Couldn't move for it.
Star Trek has a long...
Jensen has a literal shipping container full of already pre-ground weed. And no one's taking advantage of it. I mean, obviously Picard on his off days.
Yeah, under the relaxation light.
Yeah, that's it. That's what he calls it. He goes down and he says, "Oi, Jensen, have you got... I'm ready to turn on the relaxation light for, say, let's say an hour and a half."
The problem is that this ship hasn't got enough decks, because we're in 10 forward. But really, if we were in 420 forward... then... right. Okay, MVP of the episode, by the way. The natural enemy of the Tory is a doctor who works in a socialised healthcare system. Beverly is on fucking point. When she she has a line where she manages to fundamentally destroy the concept of capitalism with one sentence, where she says, "You'd see them die rather than give them the medicine." Yep.
Yep.
That's capitalism. Well done, Bev.
Bev is on fire this week.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed, and I have well, my promotion was for Tasha Yar, because for at least trying to speak to Wesley about drugs rather than just saying go and see Jensen. Demotion this week,
yeah,
definitely Picard, for the reason of being a dick.
Okay, I'm trying to work this out. So I agree with that, but I'm just trying to do some maths here. So we're told that the big tub of drugs that they've got has 4 billion doses in it, right? And they need to take it every 72 hours. So that's enough to last one person 1.33 recurring billion days, right?
Yeah.
And there's only like 1,000 people, like a couple of thousand people in space. So let's say it's 5,000. Okay. That's enough drugs for this planet for 2,660 days. No, 1,000 days. That's enough. They don't need...
I mean, you're right. That is a lot to lose. I am starting to see the Toadies' point on this one.
Yeah, it seems like you've put all of your drugs in one basket. That's not what you want. You want your people coming back regularly.
You have to diversify. You have to build an audience for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You shouldn't... Once you've got everybody addicted on this one drug, which, by the way, as well, doesn't seem to even have any, like, nice effects. It's just...
I was a bit confused by that, because obviously when they're on the ship, when they're flying around, they seem to be stoned. But we know that the point of the drug is just to take them off their DTs, right? Their withdrawal symptoms. So, yeah, what does it do? Because again, that kind of goes against Tasha's point, is that, yeah, eventually you will just be taking the drugs to feel normal, but we should, like, that we should be showing that at least they get a little bit of, hey, because I'm sure that even the most ardent heroin addict is able to muster up, like, at least a pathetic wank after doing it. Isn't that what it's for?
I mean, yeah, so they say it was like there was a real plague, like a couple of 100 years ago, and like, so one planet literally only have one industry that's making this drug, and the other planet's kind of like not developed because they've been just using all of their resources to give them food and buy the drug off them. So at some point it like cured that disease, and that got everyone hooked, and now it's just to fend off withdrawal. But yeah, I agree with you. If it should have done something. There's another crew member I want to put forward for special commendation, and it's not. I want to be clear on this. It is not Commander Riker, but it is Jonathan Frakes. Okay.
Can I guess why?
Yes.
Is it for his absolute Will Smith slap, Oscar-winning, being electrocuted performance?
Yeah. So what we haven't mentioned is that these aliens, both of them, have like the ability to like electrocute people. And at one point, one of them grabs William Riker and like puts some electricity through his body, which causes him. It's amazing, Mark. It's
yeah. And if you're listening to this, if you're not following along the episodes with us, and you're like, oh my god, we just got to 40 minutes, and they've only now brought up the fact that these people have electric powers. We've literally just given more time to that concept than the entire episode does.
Yeah,
it was as if it was like a throwback from another earlier draft. With the electric powers were important, but the problem was they'd already filmed one of those scenes after they redrafted it, so they thought, well, we have to do this again.
The only real discussion of it is in a sort of a cross between like a Quentin Tarantino and Aaron Sorkin style scene in which Tasha and Riker are walking down a corridor just discussing how electrical powers might work. And it just seems like the sort of conversation that you and I might have in a pub, Mark. Like talking about how, like, Shazam can't actually charge your phone because he'd have to get the current so exactly correct that he's more likely going to blow your phone up. And he doesn't have that much control. But if you want to kill you, like, you know, it's that kind of conversation.
It felt a bit like someone walking down to the other person. Yeah, electric powers. Yeah, those would be cool. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, so Jonathan Frakes' shocked face acting is. I read into bet that he watched that back and when I would probably do better as an actor if I grew something that covered most of my face.
And we know for a fact that he did watch it back.
Yeah,
immediately after the events, he watched it again.
Yeah, that's how he writes his reports.
Yeah,
pen in one hand, cock in the other.
Yeah, that's what he refers to as the captain's log.
Oh,
the things that are in the container, the drugs. It's just red lentils.
Is it?
Yeah, I looked it up.
It's amazing.
But
so yeah, the big thing of this episode that I like is that like so Picard finds out that the Breccians are like they give the people enough drugs for them to like get straight enough that they can have like a proper conversation, and then they're like, oh, you know what, we'll give you these drugs. Well, not give you, you can have them, because so they're arguing that they haven't received payment because the freighter blew up, and they're like, oh, we'll let you have them, but you can work out payment later, which is fucking such a Rishi fucking Sunak move. And it's at that point it's like, well, you're only doing that because if you wait, and this is where I get a bit confused. Like, nobody in the entire history of this planet has ever been like trapped in a cave.
Yeah,
and been, like, gotten out and been like,
are they trying to say that this planet doesn't have any suicidal people on it?
Yeah, no one's gone, oh, I'm going to stop. It's an entire planet where your literal only purpose that you exist for is to provide resources to a powerful group of individuals who run everything. And we have that here, and people kill themselves all the time. But yeah, nobody's ever been in a situation where it's like, oh, I got lost in the woods, like my plane crashed, like I got a yellow jacket situation, and it turns out after you get through the withdrawal, you're fine. And this has been hundreds of years, so I can only assume that the Breccians have got two industries. One is making drugs, and the other one is constantly monitoring this planet. And if anybody's ever like left on their own for 5 days, they just kill them.
But then I guess there's also the thing, because Beverly does bring this up, but we never actually see what the withdrawal symptoms really look like. Because it could be that after 5 days they all turn into starfish, and then on the 15th day they turn back from starfish. And I don't know if you were here, Eddie, when we went to the planet of the starfish, but when there's an entire planet full of starfish, nothing gets done. So what you would need to do is you would need to have half of them withdraw and turn into starfish, and the other half keep taking the drugs and look after them. And I just don't think they're ready to do that, and that's why I think Picard made exactly the right decision.
How much looking after does a starfish need?
Oh, loads. You need to count the number of limbs. You need to see the thing about starfish is that a star's natural environment is the sky. So I don't know if you've ever actually looked at a starfish, but starfish are constantly moving upwards. And if you don't weigh them down every now and again, you walk by a pond. Sometimes you see them in sea life. Sometimes if like an employee has taken too long during a toilet break, the starfish will start slowly raising toward themselves, floating up towards the ceiling. And then the employer, you'll hear a toilet flush, and then no washing of hands. And then they'll run out and they'll be like, oh, no, nope. And they'll reach up and they'll get the starfish and they'll start pulling it back down towards the water.
I mean, I know what you're describing is meant to be fairly light-hearted, but I've watched The Suicide Squad, and what you're describing is terrifying.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm very much a live and let live man, right? I think if starfish want to die, we should let them. That's how I feel about pandas.
Yeah, I would say fuck pandas, but pandas won't, so...
Exactly. And pandas are genuinely my favourite animal, but by God, I don't think nature has ever given man... people talk about, oh, Jurassic Park is the ultimate message about why man shouldn't mess with nature. No, pandas are the ultimate message of why man shouldn't mess with nature, because it's just a fruitless task that will go on forever, and at the end of the day, it will have been completely pointless. No one needs to be killed by a velociraptor. That's what we need to do, right? That's how we solve the withdrawal symptoms on this planet. Is Picard sends them a couple of pandas and says, these things technically will breed, right? They can breed. What we want you to do, we want you to get them to breed. And with the hopelessness that comes with them trying to do that, eventually they will all become suicidal, which will take them all off of their meds. Boom. Problem solved. And this is why Marky Boy should be captain of the Enterprise.
I'm going to throw this out there, that by the time Starfleet rolls around, by this point in the future, all the pandas are dead. Because if they weren't dead, Mark, that would be the Kobayashi Maru test.
No, I think there's a Constitution class starship out there that's entirely staffed by one guy and a bunch of pandas. And there's a panda Geordie who's got a little panda visor on. There's a panda Troy who's just a bit useless, like more useless than the rest of the crew of pandas.
There's an android panda. The weirdest thing is the panda who keeps going on about the rape gangs, because you wouldn't think that'd be a thing in panda society.
Strangely it is. In fact, it's actually weirder that more of them don't go on about it, because it's so prevalent in panda society.
They only rape you in the mouth though, so you can't reproduce from it.
Woof.
Right.
Disgusting.
We kind of wandered off the point here.
Have we?
Are pandas like? Is there right? Man, that would have been a great move. All I'm going to say is the Star Trek movie where is it 4, The Voyage Home?
Yeah.
Where
they get the whales.
Where they get the whales would have been better if it was pandas. It would have been easier to collect them, but then Starfleet have to go. But now we need to keep these alive until that thing comes back again in 10,000 years, they're useless. Can we just freeze these two?
Thinking as a storyteller, Eddie. So the reason that they have to go back and get the whales is because a mysterious spaceship arrives that is seemingly impervious, putting out a signal that someone recognises as being the mating calls of humpback whales, which is a very forward-thinking bit of sci-fi. Why should we be the only animals that people want to come to Earth to get, right? Great. So they go back in time, they get the whales, they come back, and the whales say, can you please stop? Now, had that been a panda equivalent, the panda ship wouldn't have tried to destroy us. It would have just come, it would have just been huge. It would have just come and just sat in our orbit, eating space bamboo and doing nothing. And eventually, we would be so intrigued by this that we'd be like, well, we have to figure out what the fuck is happening. We realise it only speaks panda language. And then the problem is, we have to get the pandas to speak to the thing. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to speak to each other. And we can't even sexy up the spaceship to make the panda go, I'll have that. Because we know that the panda's not bothered about it.
How come stuff like that doesn't happen more in like Star Trek? Like it's like, oh, there's a giant bear in the sky. Oh, it's gone. Like it's like weird stuff that happens, but has no real impact. Would be great. I'd love that in an episode of fucking Star Trek. It's like weird. It's like we found Abraham Lincoln in space in a big chair. What did he say? Told us to fuck off. What'd you do? Well, we fucked off.
We found the Planet of the Apes planet where there was an ape Lincoln, and weirdly enough, he was called Ape Lincoln. And he said it, and we went, what's your name? And he went, Ape Lincoln. And we went, ha ha, and we pointed. And he was like, I don't understand why that's funny to you.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, we had an Abe Lincoln. And the Ape Lincoln goes, but that's not a pun. So it doesn't make any sense.
Is my big question would have to be: is Ape Lincoln's name short for Abraham?
Abraham Lincoln, yeah, obviously. Yeah, and it turns out it's not a pun. It turns out that's a very common name, is Abraham.
It's the second most common name on that planet after Muhammad.
And other than those two, all the names are normal. Susan. There's a Susan 8. Abraham Lincoln is married to just Beverly Lincoln.
I'm just looking at at the end of this episode, Picard leaves them to die. Picard, they've got two ships. Picard's not going to repair them. That's how the episode ends. So eventually, they won't be able to get the drugs from that planet. They'll realise that their entire society has been built on a con, and I'm imagining that at that point, the whatever they're called, the non-Brachians, entire society will then be built into making a big fuck off laser to blow the other fucking planet out of existence.
And that's when Picard will be back.
Yeah. Picard loves a genocide.
Loves it. He's done 4 of them.
I love the end of this episode as well. I want to say that. The very end. Like, Picard's like, fuck it, I'm done with this shit. Let's leave. And apparently they have like standing orders as to where to go. Because he's like, fuck it, get us out of it. And Geordie's like, where to? And he's like, fucking anywhere. And Geordie's like, oh, I'm setting so-and-so for this system. And Riker's like, oh, that's an interesting choice. Why that? And Geordie's like, we've never been there. Picard's like, that's a good enough reason. And then they go.
Yeah,
and I like that.
Which is great on one hand, but on the other hand, Picard, how do you know that you're not going to find exactly the same problem there? Except it'll be exactly the same problem, except the two people are apes. And it's just the ape Brechians have got the other apes addicted to the ape lentils.
Yeah.
Imagine if this was just the only problem that Picard ever had to solve.
And weirdly, one of those apes is going to be played by the same ape that played the son of Ape Kirk. But also, it's like, I can't believe that like this is the flagship of the Federation, and after they've finished up in this system where they were supposed to be monitoring a star, they've got nothing. There's nothing left. That doesn't happen like in any navy on Earth. There's never a point where like the flagship of the US Navy is just like, have we got nothing on.
Also, have they finished looking at the star? Like, I presume they were there for a reason.
Dot over it.
Yeah.
Also, the little dot, the view screen had a little targeting thing that came up over the ship. Those are the two view screen things that happened in this episode that never happen again. Because this one writer really loves the view screen, and afterwards other writers were like, could we focus more on like the warp drive, the holodeck, transport of the phasers, literally any of the other, even the slidey doors are more.
and why is it significant that they went to see this star? Aren't they seeing lots of stars on this Star Trek?
This could have been handled by a probe, I feel.
Yeah.
They could have like left a thing in space.
And also, they're standing there just talking about how fucking gorgeous it is. Geordie's right there, man. He's looking. He sees the star's stunt double, which is a moon.
Oh. An alright episode, to be fair. A very special episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
If you want to learn why not to take drugs, if you are being sold drugs by a drug dealer, and the only thing that drug dealer can tell you about those drugs is that they will make you get rid of the withdrawal for not being on the drugs, don't do those drugs.
Nah.
Buy better drugs that have an actual effect, like
Yeah.
LSD or MDMA or
Far superior to caffeine.
I managed to get Glastonbury tickets for this year, so
Nice.
Class A drugs that don't require an injection.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You'll probably be fine.
R.I.P. Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
But it's probably be fine.
Yeah.
Probably.
Aye. Right, well, better get back to work, eh?
Yeah, I've got to go help Ensign Jensen replace the warp coil thingies that we fucking spaffed off on a ship that doesn't fucking work.
I've got to go and help him roll some pre-rolls for Beverly Crusher.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.